Travels of Terror, Strange and Spooky Spots Across America. The Bram Stoker Award-nominated horror duo of Kelly Florence and Meg Hafdahl is ready to take everyone on a journey across America's creepiest dark tourism locations. Grab your flashlight, garlic, and ghost hunting equipment. We're taking you on the ultimate road trip of the spookiest places around the United States.
We have two events to announce now, because we have the October 11th event at the West Theater in Duluth. Laugh Till You Scream at 9 p.m. It is a combination of stand-up comedy and horror shorts, as well as an October 6th event at the Woodbury 10 at 6 p.m. And it'll be Farx Brothers Presents Pilots. We're going to show Canusa Street and, I believe, a Hitch list, as well as some of our shorts. And Zach will be there, and I will be there as the filmmakers, and I think we'll have the same we have the same comedians committed. Did you just flick your can again?
Yeah, I already opened it. I was thirsty.
Okay. Good job, Kirk.
Thank you.
Welcome to Movie Baiters. I'm Kyle.
I'm Nick.
I'm Kirk.
And this week we have Abdi Mohamed with us, and we don't have a particular bait topic that we're going to go with. We have Sicario on in the background, muted. Nick hasn't seen it. Abdi watched it recently. I saw it with my wife in a pre-screening. Kirk, have you seen it?
Yes, I've seen it, but not recent.
Fuck yes, Kirk. This is an adult podcast. We are not a review podcast. We are a debate podcast. What do you think BATE stood for? Even though we're master debaters. And we're purposely going to try to disagree with one another. But to start out with, my brothers are going to ask Abdi questions because I just found out this is their first time meeting him.
You just found out.
Yeah,
I don't do a lot of research for this pod.
I can tell. All right, so Abdi, you're in the
your
film.
brothers? Yeah.
Yeah, we're adopted brothers.
We're the Farx Brothers.
Yeah.
Movie
Okay.
Baiters with
Quote,
the
unquote.
Farx Brothers. These are the Farx Brothers.
Not really brothers.
What?
Yeah.
Not really brothers.
Kirk will have to fix that. in post.
There you go. With the Farx Brothers. Yeah. Well, yeah, nice to meet you both.
Nice to meet you. So you're also in the film scene, right? What do you do usually?
Yeah, I would describe myself nowadays as a producer,
Nice.
more so. And writer. I work more so primarily like unscripted documentary world, so just kind of stuff that you might see like a true crime show or dating show or a commercial, and then at the same time I'm also in front of the camera a lot, or behind the mic, doing voiceover work or acting commercials, but nowadays I would say producer.
All right, so are you working mostly out of Minnesota, or do you go back and forth from LA at all?
No, here in the Twin Cities. I just
Nice.
had one opportunity in LA a couple years ago, but mostly here in the Twin Cities.
So what have you been working on lately?
Lately, a fean different things. I also edit a podcast
Nice.
that's on Ampers. Ampers is like an acronym for basically just Association of Radio Stations in Minnesota. And I do one show with Cam J called Disruptive Narratives. It's like a academic science-y show and whatnot, which is fun. But outside of that, like tomorrow, I'm on set doing a commercial, leading that project for not really a commercial, but just kind of like a in organization messaging, internal stuff or whatever, or for members at this bank or Chamber of Commerce. And just stuff like that. But if I could kind of summarize it more so, it's just like a doc that I've been working on for like a year and a half. I think that's kind of like the thing of like being in film or being a filmmaker, is like you have these long-term projects and kind of the stuff that I'm kind of pivoting more to kind of shorter goals, like with a short film or a short doc. But right now I've been working on a documentary for about a year and a half. I've done like 2 fellowships on this, which is like, just kind of, again, cohorts and helping you kind of along on the opioid crisis in the Twin Cities. And so just kind of looking at that. And one thing I should have mentioned up front is I have more so also a journalistic background. So the past like 9 years I've been in between like documentary world and journalist world, which is pretty much the same thing.
How close would you say your doc is to being finished? And
I mean, these things take years. So,
Yeah,
I'd say
I
for this one, like in a year and a half, you try to interview people, try to connect with folks who you want to be your main subjects, whose lives you want to follow, and you end up differing on things. So I had to go through two different people over a course of time. One who I did make a short film on in my first fellowship, but then now kind of pivoting to a more community ensemble cast like kind of approach to this, where instead of one person's story, which would be great, to kind of personify this issue of the opioid crisis, specifically in the Somali community, East African community, like even Native and Black communities, and looking at how their cultural resources can help people, beat addiction if they just have people who look like them providing those services, right? Is the kind of theme of the doc. But sometimes people have personal stories and personal lives, and they want to have more control of it than what a documentary might allow. And there's that's an ongoing conversation in and of itself.
What got you into that project?
Just hearing about a lot of funerals, a lot of deaths. There's a lot, and I've had friends, family, die from fentanyl and opioids and whatnot. And so it just, to me, is just like, if I have the ability to kind of stitch a story together and, go around and interview people and apply for grants, like right now I'm applying for some of these grants and other fellowships and stuff to get some backing and support for it. If I have the ability to do that, I feel like then it's kind of like a responsibility, at that point, and to get the story right. Because I don't know, I'd say it first kind of happened, again, being a journalist, my first job as a reporter was at North News over in North Minneapolis, and I had just proposed to my editor, Kenzie, at the time, O'Keefe, how about we just do, this month's paper, we just have it be focused on the opioid crisis in the Black community in North Minneapolis. And then I stumble upon this place called Turning Point, and they have, they've been doing it for 40 years with Black drug counselors and folks that help you go through the whole after getting treatment to get the continued support and recovery. Met those folks, wrote an article about them, learned about this Muslim guy who's doing it, this Black American guy who's Muslim. Then he tells me about this Somali treatment center that does inpatient stuff where people are housed and they get I think it's methadone treatment, for their addictions or whatnot. And so, yeah, that kind of opened that world years ago. This is back in 2018, I want to say. And then just kind of pursued those contacts after I saw a couple opportunities to do my own doc. And of course, for this whole time, I've been a PA on docs. I've been an assistant camera person. I've been an associate producer. I've just been in and around documentary films and that work that I was just like, oh, I can also do this in the lead position rather than always kind of assisting or whatnot.
I'm going to ask a dumb question, Abdi. What's the difference between a fellowship and a grant?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes fellowships come with stipends, right? Mm-hmm. So there'll be that, and there's that kind of obligation to kind of have either monthly. So for the fellowship that I did with Kartemkun in Chicago, they produced Hoop Dreams and these other docs over the years, and so they have this fellowship where they gave me a stipend to produce something basically a proof of concept or basically 5 to 15 minute cut, first 5 minutes and then 15. And so throughout that time, originally before COVID, it was they would fly you out to Chicago, every other month or whatever for that fellowship period. But we got flown out twice, once in the spring and then once in the fall to present our work. And they just kind of, connect you, right, in that fellowship aspect to other people. One guy who went through the same fellowship, he did Minding the Gap, this documentary on skateboarding and domestic abuse or whatnot.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I thought it was a really interesting.
It was a really great doc. Yeah. He went through this program, this fellowship, years ago or whatnot. But yeah, it was an Oscar-nominated doc, and they just kind of help you through and kind of support you through that. I think a grant depends, right? I mean, there's so many different types of grants. I think there's some that come with those stipulations as well, where it's okay, you have to check in, or we want this and that. Yeah, I think a grant is a bit, with the fellowship, I think a fellowship is more stringent and just kind of more, constraints on that. But in terms of like obligations and reporting back. But I think a grant is just like, here's, you convinced us, here you go, here's the money. And not a lot, I don't know, I guess, you could say there's a lot for different things here in the Midwest, in the Twin Cities, but I feel like there's just a lot more grants. It's relative. I think you go to different countries, there's like way more grants and opportunities from the government, but we get what we get here.
Let's say you get X number of dollars from a grant, how do you divide that up on a 5 to 15? What percentages are going to what parts of the budget?
It's a good question. I mean, like in some of the grants that I've said, I don't know. Right now I'm in the middle of a grant for, I think it was like for the people who, I think it's one production or one project that can win it and get $100,000. And then the rest of folks get like 15 grand. I think some of that might just be, going to my friend Bakar, who's the DP on this project, and like his time. I mean, he's an expensive guy to have, but he has like a great resume working with a ton of corporations and kind of coming from the commercial world, but also having kind of narrative like sensibilities when it comes to his filmmaking. So he's really great to work with, but I want to compensate the people that I'm on set with, essentially. And then I also like. Again, to kind of maybe even ask you a question about like the difference between these fellowships and grants, is I applied to the Jerome Fellowship. And the Jerome Fellowship and a lot of these other grants that I'm applying to are very much just supporting the individual. So they're just like, we don't care what project you're working on, but here's for your development, and your travel is like one thing. You can just like travel to different festivals and you're developing yourself in your career. So Jerome, that's like 3 years, 20 grand a year is what they just give you just to kind of like live and just be an artist or whatever. And then you have these other projects. Like I got a rejection from, I think it was Catapult the other day, and that was probably 300 grand. And if I were to divide that, I'd definitely divide it by my time, you know what I mean? And compensate myself for sure. And then on top of that, like producers, editors, people who would be in the continuous process of like helping develop more of the production, right? And then leave some for posts in terms of looking to go get more financing behind it. So it's this constant just kind of like, all right, this is what we shot. What can we add this to the film that we have now? What's changing in it? And then fundraise some more from that point.
You've made the comparison between the United States and other countries, and I'm aware that like if I were in Germany, I'd have a lot more public funding for my projects, and like my projects could lose money like Yule Balls do, but he keeps making them because there's just enough public funding to keep him working.
Yeah.
So as I grab you another drink, what would you say is unique about Minnesota? What pros and cons of Minnesota, Upper Midwest versus other places you may have heard about, researched, DP or?
I think just sheer opportunity. Thank you. I think sheer opportunity, right? Like where, I don't know. I think okay. There's a few different things where there's a lot of philanthropic money and foundation money when it comes to Minnesota, and that type of support. I think it's kind of like there's a ceiling at the same time. I feel like the same people are kind of doing the same kind of work or hiring. I think a lot of the opportunities come to the same people, if that makes sense. So it's not really spread out as much. And I think with an abundance mindset, the state could be more if there were more location managers, if there's more production coordinators, if there's more points of contact for people in the industries and in these coasts who are flying in. A lot of the time that's kind of the fun stuff that I get to do is when I hear about a production company coming from Toronto or London, and they hit me up because they find me in the production directory, and then like I get to go around and whatnot, show them around town and be on set with them and coordinate stuff. That's cool, but I feel like those opportunities are few and far between, that you kind of have to like stitch shit together to be an actor and voiceover person and journalist and this and that. But I think if we were in a different city, there's sheer number wise just way more opportunities and way more work, much more work to do. But I think here it's if you're plugged in, then it helps a lot. You just have to kind of get plugged in is the thing.
What's that directory? I know which directory you're talking about. But
just for folks listening, the production directory is the Minnesota State film board or just the Minnesota Film and TV production directory, where it just lists individuals. You can list yourself, or anyone can list themselves as a business or as an individual doing some type of crew work. So if you're a hair and makeup person, caterer, or you're a production assistant, or you're a producer, or you're a director, or you're a cinematographer, sound person, you can just list yourself on this directory, and people can just search you on up. And if they're out from out of town, they just look at this. If they have something going on in Minnesota, they just check you out and then hit you up.
You've worked on some big projects that I'm aware of. You worked on Mogadishu, Minnesota, correct? The Catherine Bigelow thing?
No, I did not, but that definitely did launch my career.
Well, how so?
Because I kind of shut it down.
You shut it down? Oh man.
Yeah, that's a story. How did that happen?
I don't want to take credit for it, but I definitely stoked the flames in helping shut it down. I was there when Kanan, I don't know if I want to say all this, but yeah, Kanan was behind the show, the singer, waving flag, FIFA World Cup song guy, Somali artist. He came to town. He worked on that show. He was kind of the Somali face for HBO. Famous guy. He's done a couple shows for. He did a Stephen King show called Castle Rock. I think season 2.
Watch that.
I think it was I think season 2 or so. That was him. And that's why they had a bunch of Somali people in there. He wrote it. So anyway, he's been in the industry for a while. Starting off in music, doing TV and whatnot. He has actually a project at TIFF right now. At the time, what a lot of people, and I'm not just saying this, but this has kind of just been the sentiment, since, and what was at the time was that this project, Mogadishu, Minnesota, is insensitive and just depicting the Somali community in Minnesota, by HBO. It's an HBO show that he worked on with Catherine Bigelow, Zero Dark 30, right?
Yep.
Director, and Hurt Locker too, right? She won a Best Picture, I think, off of that. Great director and whatnot, but a lot of her stuff has been, especially Zero Dark 30, not the best to Muslims. And so it's you're working with her and HBO to come here and do a show about Somali teens getting brainwashed into becoming terrorists while there's a terror trial going on with 8 guys on trial.
Jeez. What year was this? I'm sorry.
This is 2017, I want to say.
It was that recent.
Maybe 20, I want to say 2016, 2017. And so it was, kind of a crazy time in that time where... Yeah, people just were not fucking with the production. They shut down any permits for access to the Cedar Riverside buildings.
Okay.
They went to the public housing office and said, do not give them permits to shoot here. I think it's the first time a community, maybe, I don't know, but I think in modern times, in in the West, a community just went up and just shut down a movie, shut down an HBO set. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Minnesotans have screwed themselves out of the movie industry before, but...
For sure. No, in terms of policy... I get what
you're saying.
In terms of policy, right?
People organizing to go, no, I want this capitalist enterprise not to happen. And I apologize. I remember seeing your name next to it at some point in something, and now I understand why.
Well, I wrote an article for MinPost. So that got me... I'd been writing before that, but that got me my first byline in the city. And then... I spoke to, and I wrote about how this other film, Astray, by Musa Saeed, who had Sard Barkat Abdurrahman, who was in Captain Phillips, the younger guy, not the main guy, but the younger actor, and one of the other guys. There's a film called Astray, shot here, about just a random Somali kid with a stray dog. And I was like, this movie is much more accurate to how folks in Minneapolis are. And it's by a Pakistani director who was at Sundance the year before with another project, right? This guy's, doing his thing. Came to Minneapolis, shot this, and I was like, oh, this is a better example rather than this show, and look at the process of how this show went. Arrogantly, the production here, you know what I mean? It's just, people just, I don't know. I think Hollywood, and I learned a lot working on this other production. What I worked on was Little America. It's the
Kumail Nanjiani one.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you had both of those, but now I understand the mistake.
Yeah. No, you're good. No, I mean, with Mogadishu, Minnesota, or the HBO thing, I mean, I was interviewed in the BBC. I was there during a protest, that they had where they shut down Kanan, and I filmed it, and people, kids were pepper sprayed by the cops. You know what I mean? I got picked up and had tens of thousands of views or whatever, and folks were asking for permission to use it, online. So I think, why I joke that I take credit. I think HBO or somebody saw that, and online, the video especially of a show, and this a show being promoted. It was a block party in Cedar Riverside. He was on stage and people were ripping the wires out of the amps Like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, people were like, "Fuck, this is very punk rock." Yeah, it was very punk rock. They're like, you know, talk about bait. They're like, get the fuck out of here. And yeah, some people got arrested, and so there's just, I think, too much bad publicity around the show.
So cops pepper sprayed. That's got
Children,
be,
yeah.
Yeah.
I have the video. I can show you guys. I'll send it to you later.
Yeah, we should put that up with the episode. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that would have been it. So that would have been 3 years before George Floyd. Jeez. You said punk rock, and I know that you have. Do you mind if I ask you to talk about your punk rock project? Do you have like what you can say about it?
Yeah, I'll say that. Yeah, it's great. I mean, I'm on the team with these folks and people who it's based on and their true stories. And that project, I can definitely say that chain of title. I think this is kind of the conversation we had was like very important because it's like I'm working directly with the people whose lived experiences that we're going to have in the film. And so, yeah, it's a great conversation, and I'm kind of like in this project I want to say not necessarily taking a backseat, but it's just like it's this person's story. They'll have wants and wishes in terms of who they want to depict them and whatnot. But we had a really great discussion recently with Van Hayden, I'll say, who I'm hoping to also bring onto this project and his background, where he worked on awesome projects like Kids. I didn't know Van.
You worked on Kids?
He worked on
AIDS
Kids.
Movie for about kids?
Yeah, in the 90s. With, I think her name is Christine Vachon, the producer, who's from here also. But he said, and I've told this story a couple of times since he told me, because this was like maybe a couple months ago or a month and a half ago that he told me it, but it's still crazy. He just drops, like Van, if people don't, just IMDb, Van Hayden, Hayden. The guy's a legend.
He's got Fight Night on Peacock right now with Kevin Hart and Taraji P. Henson.
He was just, shooting that earlier this year, and now it's it's out on TV. But yeah, like 30 plus years in the game. He was telling me about it was me, him, and the guy whose film we're looking to help or consult on, and he was just saying like how he was working on Kids. He was the first AD on that. I think it was just like 4 of them, just kind of scouting locations in New York. And yeah, he's been like first AD for years, just like kicking it. And they're in the Bronx or Brooklyn somewhere, and then he just sees this like young Puerto Rican girl, and he's just like, and her mom sitting next to her. I don't know if I want to tell this story, but her mom sitting next to her drinking a 40 or some shit. And he's just like, oh, could we cast your daughter? And it was like a long discussion, but at the end of the night, the mom was like, okay, convinced by it. They're like, we're like, here's the money we got. Like, everything's legit. That girl's Rosario Dawson.
What?
Wow.
Her mom was drinking a 40?
Yeah.
And now she's dating Cory Booker?
Yeah, or was,
Senator?
I think. Yeah.
Well, they're not.
And then Eric Andre, and yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I got to follow her dating record better.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the pitch for the punk rock thing? Because I remember when we were talking about Chain of Title, which we should circle back to, you pitched it in a way, and can I do my bad pitch of it? Because I...
Yeah. And we can even talk about it. It's about the Baldies in Minneapolis. Like,
it's like the Baldies who went to war with the neo-Nazis. So they like went bald to fight skinheads. And this is back. They were already bald.
They were already bald, but yeah.
Then they were already bald. Why were
they already skinheads. They're like the real skinheads are. You know what I mean? Like it's a British thing. It's like kind of like blue collar thing. Yeah. So like it was like original skinheads were just punk folks who I think in Europe were heavily anti-fascist also. But in Europe it was anti-fascism against the Nazis, where we didn't have that context. So for them, it was like anti-racist, and they created this thing called anti-racist action, which is like kind of like their legacy. Then it becomes Antifa, different legacy.
Well, that's a complicated history.
Yeah, but it started off as Baldies, a group of guys here and girls here in the Twin Cities.
Wait, the girls shaved their heads too?
No, the girls got like this weird, like different, I'll say, haircut where it was just like. I think it was like the entire head and just their bangs left. Something like that. It's kind of something after like Doctor Who or some shit. not like Dr. Seuss.
Okay.
Yeah. Like some Whoville.
Can't imagine it, but I have to look that up.
Yeah.
That's the gills of Nick Farx. Nick Farx, do you have any... I waited till you had the can to your mouth of sparkling water. Do you have no questions that have been sparked in the past?
You've been pretty rapid fire as soon as Abdi start.
You're good. You're a good interviewer. You're ready to.
See, we talked about it ahead of time. We were like, okay, we gotta like introduce Abdi to the audience before we start.
This is true.
And then we got to get into some baits. But Nick, I will pause.
Yeah.
I'm stalling at the moment to look at the agenda again to
Sure.
see if I've missed anything.
Let's
How'd you guys
stop
meet? I love the
breaking
setup,
the
though. This
illusion.
is- How did we meet?
Yeah.
I feel like we met. I feel like there's so many of these like activations or film networking events.
Activations, I like calling. I'm going to start calling it that from now on.
Activations.
You
I
hear
don't
me
know.
call it that.
That is
for
so.
nothing.
Yeah, I don't know. That's
Sounds a
so
lot cooler.
fucking.
Yeah. A lot more
That is
dramatic.
so. Yeah, that is actually ridiculous to call it activations. But I don't know. I think I've heard it once for somebody cool, and I was like, I'm stealing that. Just to,
It's good.
um,
So we met at activations. We were
yeah, which
activated together.
was it? Not one of the mixers, was it? I think it was the first mixer, or not the first mixer.
Could have. Oh, you mean the? Oh,
I think it
the
was. I think it was one of. I think it was like one of the mixers at Cinequipped. I think. Or do you know?
I don't. I've
think it was in
definitely
that
talked
kind of
to you at
context.
Cinequipped, and
Oh, for sure.
Could have been at Z Systems.
Z-
Were you at the one at Z Systems?
Oh,
must have been Cinequipped.
is Z Systems over south too? Is it like,
It's over. Yeah, it's
or was it the? No, I think the one I'm thinking about was like a smaller studio.
yeah.
Is that Z Systems?
Cinequipp's the big one.
Cinequipped was huge, yeah, like that
Yeah.
one. But there was another one.
There's one coming up at Cinequipped.
I thought there was
They
like
were
a studio.
cross-promoting.
I thought there was a studio called K2 or some shit.
Oh.
Current resident is another one, right?
Current resident is one.
Correct,
but I don't
Rose,
think-
but we knew each other before we met at that Catalyst activation.
So Abdi and I only know each other socially through
Oh.
going to activations.
Okay.
Activations.
And they didn't ask any questions coming into this.
Yeah. film networking events basically. But then you got then you got involved with Catalyst. So I remember we were at the current resident thing there. But no, before that, I want to say we met at like a mixer,
Yeah,
at,
sounds right.
like Leonard's thing. Yeah. So
Oh yeah, Leonard Searchy's got those, and he's got one coming up. That's the
He's
one
got-
that's going to be, I believe, at Cinequipped this month.
yep, and the Mia.
And the MIA, the Minneapolis Institute of Art.
Mm-hmm.
Are you involved with the Minneapolis Institute of Art?
I've done events there.
Okay.
I've done a event there.
Wait, so is this the
And
one
events.
at MIA or is it at?
There's two. There's going to be one day. Saturday's going to be at Cinequipped, and the next day
Oh, is that MIA?
it's going to be at Mia, which is kind of dope.
That
Yeah.
is really cool, and this will probably come out after that, but who cares? So Nick, that
Hindsight.
was a good question.
I'm like, I know Kyle gets around on his one wheel and meets a lot of people.
Yeah,
but
Kyle
I'm like,
definitely
how
gets
the fuck
around.
did these guys meet?
This guy's a big slut.
I do get around. I am a big
Hey,
slut.
I'm the set slut, okay?
There you
I'm the
go.
slut
Designated.
running that cow.
That is a nickname that Kirk has been. Who called you the set slut first?
That was you, wasn't it?
Oh, it might have been, I was going to blame Vanessa. Vanessa, if you hear this, I was going to give you credit for that nickname
There you go.
of our good friend Kirk.
I really thought that was your adopted brother too. By the way, I thought
Yeah,
that
we're
was-
all adopted.
We're all Nick
brothers.
Nick grew
We're
up with our
adopted.
parents, and Kirk and I grew up separately. Kirk on the West Coast, and me in the Upper Peninsula.
Okay, there you go.
But we're all from Minnesota.
Oh,
It's,
there-
it's important Farx brother lore.
Definitely,
Abdi,
the lore is needed.
you just mentioned events, and I think there is when Chelsea was on the show last week, and you know who she is, she had a very specific view on the purpose and like what you should get out of events. So I'm setting you up to be like, hey, so what do you feel like you should be going to an event for, and what do you feel you get out of it?
If you're asking me, which you are, it depends on where you're at. I mean, honestly, right now I'm just kind of really into film festivals. So like this next month, I'm like, trying to run it up in terms of like gigs to go to Austin. So I'm planning to go to Austin, but I'm also trying to like squeeze in some time to go to Chicago, the Chicago Film Festival. And those, I went to Sundance earlier this year, and that was just kind of like, some of these activations locally on steroids, you know what I mean? Like, just partying with celebrities, you know what I mean? Like, crazy. I mean, I can talk about that, but just in terms of what folks can gain, I think, the stuff in the mixture is very interesting, like, real-time like film sets, like be behind a camera person, know what it's like to see, I don't know, just kind of like having that hands-on experience is cool. I do like what the Upper Midwest Film Office is doing with some of their workshops and trainings and stuff like that. I think it gets people just that hands-on experiences. If you're looking for that, and you don't have that, which you should just jump into being a PA anyway and just kind of figure it out from there and just go on some low pressure sets with friends and just kind of figure shit out. Otherwise, a lot of these kind of activations or things have those components to them nowadays. I think otherwise it's just kind of cool to just hear from people who are in that world. I remember just like, again, we had, when I helped on the mixer a while ago, we had obviously Van Hayden here's in town. He's always volunteering his time, which is great, and just lending like his experience and knowledge and whatnot. But like folks like Michael Starbury, who's like a huge writer, he lives in town here. It's crazy. He's worked on When They See Us on Netflix, and I'm blanking on what's his name, the dude who took the knee.
Dude with the knee?
The guy who took the knee on the
Colin Kaepernick.
Colin Kaepernick, yeah, Colin Kaepernick show on Netflix also. So he's just a big writer or whatever. There's a few folks like that here in town. So you get to meet these people and talk to them and hear about them, develop a relationship. That's cool, I'd say. As well as just like, I've heard from folks like, oh, I went to this thing and I met someone, and now, you know, one guy is like now continuously on set as a grip based off of one of these things. So there's opportunities that come from it too. But for myself personally, I'm looking towards festivals, having now, you know, been a part of, or as I am right now, continuing to be, I'm on the board of the Film Society that runs the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Film Fest. That's in April. So it's like, okay, if I have insight into the programming, how our festival runs here, maybe I can like develop relationships with other fests, which is what we do. Like some of our programmers like travel to one of our guys was in Toronto, check out some of the films there, and then, you know, bring them to our fest next year, and that just kind of opens you up to a whole network of people globally, which is crazy.
Have you been able to use that to get any of your projects further down the line?
I'd say I've definitely gotten commitments, you know, and like support, especially some of the stuff that I'm writing from folks where, like right now, if I'm thinking of a project where, like especially Catalyst, I think pitching, you know, like when you're active in the activation or the event that much where like you're pitching at something, I had a couple of folks come up to me and were just like, oh, one woman who's an executive and one woman who's a writer here in town locally was just like, oh, this is a great project, you know, I would love to support you in this. And so I've had like great folks who again are like mentors or, you know, people who are far off in their careers, you know, offer that help and kind of state that it's there and, you know, giving feedback and whatnot. But I think for me, it's just like all about kind of like timing and execution, especially the project. I would say actually, you know, I think not necessarily the folks that I've met at these events, but folks that I've met through sets or in this, you know, kind of world of filmmaking. It's definitely that type of world where it's like referral. Like, here's this job, here's that. I don't know where exactly I met Mandy Turpin, but I want to say it was like at something like this, or heard of her, and that got me an opportunity to be on a set up in Duluth, you know, a couple years back. So yes, that's a long-winded way of saying. No, the one thriller that they did up there, yeah. Body Language, yeah.
What's
that
that
was
called?
fun. Body Language.
Body Language.
So I was on the production team, like under the you know, second AD. It was second assistant director, but this is like the most intense scene of the film too, by the way.
This is a highway shootout.
This is like,
they're at the border. They're coming back.
Looks intense.
Yeah, this is so out of context for you.
He's watched scenes from it because he wanted to learn the Craig Mazin. Nick, tell Abdi about the Craig Mazin.
Is it like the eight rules story arc?
Not specifically. I need to open another can for this. Now that
Get the snap.
For context, we're watching Sicario, and as Kyle was saying, they're on the bridge.
So delving more into theme and structure and the relationship between, because I'm in the middle of writing a feature script right now. So and like going into it, I'm like, well, I've read Save the Cat. I'm doing Save the Cat structure, but kind of going deeper than that. And Craig Mason's thing about how, you know, the theme, if you just do structure, just like go through the motions of doing the structure. And he didn't name Save the Cat, but like, you could tell he kind of meant like if you just go and do all the beats of Save the Cat, you're gonna have a well structured story with no
gotta have something though,
you know,
substance.
So like looking at structure as part of, as tied into the theme, and like the dramatic argument of like those beats are kind of equate to back and forth exchanges in the dramatic argument. So like, where Sicario comes in, the reason Kyle brings it up is because when we did a short earlier this year, I was yapping about like Sicario being an example that Craig Mazin gave, where you have you have the theme and the anti-theme, and you have the pros and the cons of both, and the cons of one are like the opposite of the pros of the other. Did I say that right? So like,
what would the NCA? Could you like apply it to the
So Sicario, with Sicario, he had like it's a chart. It's like a 2x2 chart. So one argument is that like you need to play by the rules and follow everything to a T, right? And then the opposing argument is that you have to fight fire with fire. You have to
break conventions, like
and then underneath those there are pros and cons of both. And like the cons of if A is you have to play by the rules, well the pros is that you keep your humanity, but the cons is that you let the bad guys get away. The bad guys might get away if you play by the rules. And the B worldview is fight fire with fire. The pros are that you're gonna catch the bad guys, but you're gonna give away some of your humanity. So that's sort of like 2x2 chart.
Well, that's kind of like the summary of this movie.
That's exactly what it was. He was using Sicario as like you pick one that's going to be the theme and the other as the anti-theme, and like your character's probably starting on the anti-theme and ending on the theme, like what you're choosing to be like the negative worldview, and then maybe coming around to the positive one.
Do we think she came around to this?
I haven't seen it all the way through, so I don't know what she
it's just like Training Day basically
settles on.
It's like
because sometimes you don't make the transition from the bad, quote unquote, to the good. You start bad and you get a taste of the good, but you don't quite make it, and you end up back. You're still left on the bad at the end. If it's more of a tragedy type story where good doesn't really prevail, and that guy looks like Roddy McDowell, but never mind.
Yeah.
Roddy McDowell. It's not him. He's dead. He's been dead for years.
This guy or this guy?
Not Benicio, but the other guy. But
Benicio del Toro is awesome in this.
So that's how my involvement with Sicario was when you brought up the Craig Mazin thing.
Craig Mazin is a fucking beast though. Chernobyl and Last of Us and like
on Scary Movie 3 and 4.
No, wait, what?
No,
he's got a long career.
Wait, scary movies, like the comedies.
Yeah,
he wrote those.
He's a comedy guy.
He got not the first two, because the Wayans brothers were kind of all they had like 6 writers.
He was brought in to rewrite 3 and 4, wasn't he? Or he
probably some. I don't know.
3.
I haven't looked at the credits list if it's an ampersand or an and, but like he was on 3 and 4. Pat Pratt, I think like the Zuckers and like the Pat Prof, who's from here, I think they were maybe the final. I don't know if they were first or second on Scary Movie 3 and 4, but like Craig Mazin was on those in one way or another.
Craig Mazin, no, I mean I did not know that about, but that just makes you like, it's like one of those things like Louis C.K. writing Pootie Tang, like
yeah,
it's like this
everyone
one of those
somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, you've introduced a debate topic that I'm going to hit on. I would say that Training Day and Sicario, first a great double feature, but B, opposites of one another, because Denzel Washington dies, whereas Josh Brolin gets away.
Spoiler.
And
Spoiler.
Not Josh Brolin. You're talking about him. You're talking about Benicio del Toro.
Okay, so who is
more
Benicio's more the like.
He's just the kind of they just let him loose. They let him loose. I guess like Brolin is just kind of the.
Is he?
Literally, just right here. Like that's kind of a perfect summary of it. He's just like the.
So Brolin
spectator.
hires the Sicario because he can't break the law, but he knows how to get around the law, and that's what he's teaching Emily Blunt how to do. Is like, yeah, you've been really good at getting to this point. Is she in the what?
She's in the FBI, I think.
Oh, I was gonna say FBI, and then it sounded stupid for some reason.
I think it's FBI. I think so. Yeah.
She's in some sort of national police organization, and then gets brought into working with the CIA, and that's Josh Brolin. And okay, but the point being, Benicio gets away, whereas Denzel dies.
Yeah, true. There's justice there. Yeah,
Yeah, but Benicio isn't the bad guy here.
You don't think Benicio's who's the bad guy? Who's the antagonist of Sicario?
No, you're right. I think you're right. It's like maybe apples and oranges, maybe not opposites, but just different in that fact that I think it's fucked up, the ending. You know what I mean? What Benicio has to do to that cartel dude where he just
Kills his family?
At the family at the dinner table?
Yeah,
There you go. You know that one.
Nick's seen the movie.
Yeah. Okay. Fuck it. I don't have to do this. Yeah.
No, don't.
Fuck a spoiler warning. All right. Yeah.
We'll put Sicario in the title. That's how we'll get.
There we go. Good. Let them
SEO.
know. Surprise. But yeah, no. I think that action alone could make him the bad guy. But and I think to that point of the Craig Mazin chart and everything, right? Like there's.
Thanks for listening to part 1 of our 3-part interview with Abdi Mohamed. Please tune in on Wednesday to hear us discuss Nope and Get Out.